If you're always thinking about how do I structure my business so that if someone were to come in, they could quickly evaluate and make a decision, then you're probably running a successful business anyways. I think community and culture, I've really focused on that, and it's really authentic culture, not contrived BS. We have a quote on our site that says, work with builders, not daydreamers, right? Like people who can actually do these different pieces, not people who can think of the idea for it. That's great. Keep them around. But you want to work for builders.
Documentation is king. Like you put out a product with a developer who wrote the whole entire section of code, but you didn't ask him to document it. And now someone else has to come in and they have to figure out, how does it work?
Don't give them what they want. Give them what they didn't know they could have.
Have you ever wondered how to lead a company to a successful acquisition? Today, we're chatting with Justin Fortier, CEO and CTO of FYC Labs, who did just that in 2020. Stay tuned to learn from one of San Diego's top 50 most influential business leaders. Welcome to the show. So you led FYC Labs to a successful acquisition in 2020. Can you tell us some of the key strategies?
Yeah, my outcome was interesting. With FYC Labs, we started out as a boutique small agency, just doing mom and pop shops, WordPress websites, menus, creative work. In the meantime, it grew to a decent size. We grabbed bigger clients like Remax and all sorts of other renowned businesses internationally. It was cool, but I wanted to start a product business. So I actually left the business. So my story is interesting in that sense. It wasn't built to be acquired, but the one thing that I did do all along was I understood the enterprise value growth for businesses because I went into product business. I went into SaaS businesses and I learned how to structure each business. I also had some really great advice from restaurant groups that I was working at in my early formative years right out of grad school. I was working as a general manager at a bar. And they always had in mind how to create the value of the business as an acquisition target. So they always said, hey, make sure numbers are all rung in. Make sure you're always planning for that exit. Your numbers are always ready. So I was always in that mindset, but without the intention of that particular company. I always thought that would be the one that was my lifestyle business that didn't really need to be acquired. It was more of these product business I started. It wasn't that you always have to set out in your business in sense of the actual products to be acquired that way. But if always thinking about how do I structure my business so that if someone were to come in, they can quickly evaluate and make a decision, then you're probably running a successful business anyways, because you're always having those numbers updated. You're following some sort of budget sheet. You're tracking your cash appropriately. Another thing that a lot of acquirers look at is your banking history. Are you constantly borrowing and giving money back and forth to your business, especially with small business? The actual acquisition itself was interesting. So I had an acquirer coming from Chicago looking to gobble up some small dev shops to build a conglomerate of services in tech. Turns out I actually really liked the guy. So he ended up buying out my partners. I had the earn out offer on the table for a year, hit all my targets, blew the targets out of the water. So he just bought out a portion of my business. I kept a chunk of the equity and we became partners. Now we're up to 8 businesses we're now partners on. So it was a really successful kind of match made in heaven.
So you were recognized as one of the top 50 most influential business leaders in San Diego. What do you think are the core qualities that contributed to that?
I think community and culture. I've really focused on that, and it's really authentic culture, not contrived BS. There's too many cultures out there that read it out of a book and said, this is what you're supposed to do. No, man, that's not how you build positive culture. You do it through being a role model to your team, by making the right hires, and by giving your team a voice. You don't create a full-blown democracy within your business. That's not how businesses always work. You can hear their input, you can take in their input, but you do have to be the strong leader at the end of the day. So I think that was the most important thing that we did as a business, is that we wanted to build something that would last a long time. So not just something that was a fly-by, quick lifestyle business, but we wanted something that gave people careers. And with that ethos, that along came a lot of influence and a lot of recognition within the city.
So what sets your company apart from other agencies in the industry?
So I think what's happening now, and that's where I wanted to allude to, where FYC Labs is our core services business. We've been doing projects for 12 years now, and we do a really great job at coming into your technical stack. All of our people are employees, direct hires of our company. We're not a staff augmentation. We're not a recruiting business. We actually have a team and a process and a system that we put in place. But what we discovered through that was that, heck, if we're building all these other products for these other people, why don't we build some of our own? So now we've spun up 4 ventures right out of FYC Labs. We've made 2 acquisitions as well of technology that we're going to take to market. And now we've created what we call the Fractal Group. The Fractal Group is a consortium of businesses all collaborating together and providing shared talent, providing shared resources, providing shared licenses across software, systems, all sorts of discounted services within the group to allow a rising tide raising all boats. So FYC Labs underpins that because they're the services business and kind of the cash cow that brings all these businesses up. But that is a differentiator for our business. So we eat our own dog food. We build our own products. We are empathetic to you as the builder, as the product founder.
So I know that you hold some advisory positions at several ventures. How are you balancing your responsibilities at FYC Labs with those roles?
I wouldn't recommend this approach to most people. I do have kind of that dual-edged personality where I can do the tech. I can also communicate. So that's very lucky to have both sides of the brain to be able to do that. So for me, I can communicate with the founder, I can empathize, I can understand a CEO's position and role, but I can also go to their tech teams and help them get stuff done. So that's where there's a lot of value in me being an advisor in a lot of these different companies. So it's attractive for me to come over and help, especially from a non-technical founder's perspective, to put me in as the liaison between the tech team and themselves, because I know both sides of the coin. So that helps a lot. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of work and you got to be dedicated and really passionate and almost aversive to any other approach. So for me, it's about growing a big company, a big culture, multiple projects going on at once. If I had the personality of honing in on just one thing and going into a cave and working on that one thing all the time, then this wouldn't work. So that's why I say it's not for everyone. You have to be able to bounce from place to place. Even in high school, I was the kid who had a lot of I didn't have a lot of best friends, but I had a lot of groups of friends, right? So I was able to bounce from place to place.
It's interesting. There's definitely people like that they like to juggle a lot of things and they feel like if they're not busy enough.
and you just have all ththese opportunities and you see all the system to get them there. And also know that there's diminishing returns on my time. If I'm sitting here doing work that is just the grunt work that someone else could do and I'm comfortable training someone else, there's a diminishing return, right? You get me out of there. Get me to go over do the hard thing at this business to get them over this hurdle or this blocker. So for me, sitting there just honing in on day to day isn't the best use of my time. So I've learned that over time is that put me in the hardest situation to get me out, then let someone else take it from there.
And then you get better at what you're doing too. The more of those challenges that you face, better you get at it too. So I think that's kudos to you for giving that a shot. So I know you got recognized as Mentor of the Year. So mentorship seems to be like a big part of what you do. What advice do you have for aspiring tech entrepreneurs?
Mentorship on that side is, first I had to prove that I knew my stuff. So that's where that coming in there and taking on the biggest challenges, right? So that's the first thing to being a mentor. The second is now with that cloud or respect or position that I'm in, how can I help? A tech entrepreneur would be depending on what their role, if they're on the CEO side or the CTO side, right? Maybe there's a few unicorns like me out there that are doing both. But for the most part, I usually find they're usually technical founders who bring in like a CMO or they're CEOs who bring in a CTO, right? So the advice for them as they're getting started is know where your strengths are at. If you are a jack of all trades who comes across on this, then just run it, do your thing. Maybe find somebody who helps with some business development or operations, but go ahead and execute on all those sides. I really think everyone should learn every part of their business. You as a CEO, as a founder in your early days should know every part of your business. Moments where someone is not executing and you need to be able to hold that person accountable. And the only way to be able to have an intelligent conversation with that person is to be able to do their job at least half as well as they do. In a lot of cases, I do the job probably better than most at any given job. I push myself to learn that particular job so that way I can evaluate someone's performance. So that's to me, if there's any one piece of advice to get started is do every part of your business at least once. So that way you can have an intelligent conversation and make sure that you're holding people accountable for performance.
Yeah, I agree with you. I actually worked for a restaurant delivery service in the early days of the restaurant delivery industry before Grubhub and all these other places were a thing. And the three owners of the company had done every role. So it was really helpful when you'd have an issue that you needed to tackle. They understood everything. Of course, they didn't understand the technology side of things, and that's what I ran, but that's okay. It's why they brought me in. They knew that they didn't have that knowledge. Let's fill the gap. When he had struggles, they knew how to answer his questions because they'd done it before. So I encourage people to do that as well. Most of the people who I coach actually just run a tech department. And I ask them the first question, if 5 of your people left tomorrow, would you be able to step into one of those positions to help? And if the answer is no, you have a problem.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, there's certain great moments where people say, hey, learn how to delegate, step back a little bit. But in these early days of getting your business going, it's a dogfight and you cannot be lazy about it. We have a quote on our site that says, work with builders, not daydreamers, right? Like people who can actually do these different pieces, not people who can think of the idea for it. That's great. Keep them around, but you want to work for builders. You don't want to work for daydream. You want to work with those people. So those people who can step in at any given moment if they had to, that's going to get you through this first step as a founder. It is so hard to get out of this first step. It's a dogfight early. So you better be ready to do all the roles you have to.
Yeah, totally. I used to, when I would hire people, you'd always get the developers who they want everything's supposed to be a new feature for them. They want it to be a new feature and say, look, there's architects and there's firemen. I need firemen. I don't need architects right now. The application's built. We designed it. There's going to be new features, but they have to fit into the application. You're not going to rewrite the entire application just for the new feature. They have to learn to be a fireman and put those fires out and be able to jump in and read other people's code and pick it up and move it forward. That's really important.
My favorite engineers are ones who can figure out the design pattern and continue it versus throwing out the baby with bathwater and restarting. And that to me is a sign of a really intelligent developer, is someone who can come and pick that up and just be a contributor.
It's sometimes more like throughout my career, I did software development for 20 years. And I was never like the guy who could regurgitate every single aspect of the language that I was writing in, but I knew what the language could do. And when someone presented me with a problem, I knew how to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And that's what made me valuable. You can have all of the book knowledge you want, but if you can't dig in and get, like you said, it's a dogfight. And if you can't dig in and get your hands dirty, what good are you really for the project? You got to be able to get it done.
From the happy path, just get out of the way on the fountain. There's a stage in businesses, that's the person you want. You don't want the hacker and slasher when you're at, enterprise level and you've got to move it an inch a day, right? You want, in that early stage, you're moving 100 yards a day versus an inch a day when you're up in these enterprise levels that you need every tight control done. That's something that's really interesting as we've learned it. And as our companies are getting acquired up, as we've grown, our clients are getting acquired and we're going up chain and we're seeing this sort of slow down and methodical approach versus what we did early days, which was just hack slash, get out, move fast and break stuff. Ideally pissed. This is a funny one. When we worked in the bar industry, when you make a cocktail, you'll take the peel of an orange or of a lime and you'll zest the cocktail. So we thought we would collect the zest and put it inside of an atomizer and create a spray. And we tried creating this product to speed up the zesting process of cocktails. Talk about a solution looking for a problem that is not a problem. So that was a fun one though. It was fun doing products. I realized I never want to go into physical product. So
yeah, anything that's ingested by human beings, even like I have a really good friend who runs a supplement company and everything he does, he tests. He wants it to be perfect, but he's smart enough to use a company whose ingredients are already approved. Just mix the formula, and then all they have to do is get the formula approved. But he'll tell me about an idea he has for a supplement, and a year and a half later, it'll come out. And he'll say, it wasn't because of me. It was because of all the testing we had to go through and the approvals we had to get. So yeah, anything humans ingest, it's a pain in the neck. Is there an instance where maybe a major failure or mistake turned out to be like a hugely valuable lesson or even maybe success in disguise that you can think of?
Yeah. So in the early days of FYC, and it actually was inspired of one of our major products, we would take on contracts early and get paid up front and then get a 50% after delivery. The cash flow gap and the bridge funding required to do stuff like that was not something I really anticipated being a problem, nor did I anticipate your clients not paying you on time. That wasn't something that I'd come from a world where I had contractors. We'd have DJs and bands, and I always paid everybody the night of or within a day or so of doing the event. I never thought in a million years people would just not pay you for your work. We would go into these situations where we would complete the project. They'd say, hey, can you deploy the website? We'll get you guys paid within 7 days. Got it. We deploy the website. 7 days comes. Nope, no money. I've got to make payroll. I'm sitting there looking at my team going, what am I going to do? And a lot of times I had enough personal cash where I would pull from my savings and I'd keep things going. But we ran into a situation where we thought we had a credit line that we could draw on, but we came in and they said, no, there's no draw available. You don't have enough. I forget what the exact reason was. I remember sitting outside of Comerica Bank in downtown San Diego going, this is it. My business is done. I'm going to lose my employees. They're all going to quit on me. and I'm a failure for not being able to collect on these funds. I should have never promised these guys that this was all going to happen. And I sat outside nearly in tears. I remember the wind on my face. And then somehow we wrote the checks. They all went out. They'd already gone out the door. But then instead of the credit line kicking in, our overdraft coverage kicked in from our credit card. So we ended up covering, I totally forgot about overdraft protection. We paid 25% on the damn thing, but the company kept going. What that did was it put there's something, people call it gut, but intuition is the right word for it. Like you gain an intuition, you gain a wisdom through these experiences. And I've been spending probably the last 3 or 4 years focused on building a product that helps vendors get paid on time. And at the end of the day, they just lost track of us in their vendor list. It wasn't anything on purpose. It wasn't they were disputing the work. We just weren't a squeaky enough wheel to get the attention that we needed to become that vendor that got paid. So what we've been working on is a product called Accrue. If you want to check that out, it's accrue.co, acru.co. It's awesome. You can send these automatic reminders. You'll send statements to your clients. To me, that was one of those things that hit me hard, felt like a catastrophic failure, but now has turned into one of the most important kind of missions that I have coming from a service business.
That's interesting. You reminded me of something that happened to me early on when I first started my first tech company. And that was literally, I had been working for the restaurant delivery service. It was around the time of 2008 when the economy crashed. They laid off 3 of the executives. We were working with a management consulting company. They gave us a couple of hours of time with the management consultant and we fleshed out a business idea. I got started working on building websites for people. I had this gentleman who came to me and wanted basically just a redesign of his website. And I don't know what told me to do this, but I downloaded his entire website the way that it was and kept it off to the side and then went to work redesigning the website. When it was all done, he refused to pay and said, go ahead and sue me. I'll just tell the judge you didn't do anything. You have no proof that you did anything. I emailed him a copy of the file and I said, I have no proof I did anything. Here's your old website.
Just show you what you had.
He finally paid, but it's become a habit I do now. It's been, my gosh, 25 years later, 20 years later, I'm still doing it when I start a website project, grab a copy of what's there because you just learn that someone questioned it, tried to pull a fast one, not going to happen again. And it's never been an issue before that. It was never an issue after, but it's just something we do now.
Something unique about digital deliverables that people feel lower value or they're easier to skate by. Maybe we're also used to the old days of Napster and LimeWire where we were stealing music, but there's something about digital deliverables that people feel like they can get away with one and be like, prove that I don't have a physical product. You didn't give me anything. There's nothing here. There's a ton of stuff there. There's code there. And it's a weirdly disputed industry, especially since it's so hard to understand how everything works. So it is a weird one where we're all going to have to, and also we've been through moments of being kings and the highest paid divas in the companies. I remember walking in, the engineering team got everything they wanted, anything engineers wanted. Their salaries were out of control and then they're crashing back down to size here. But it's been the weirdest thing. I didn't go to school for computer engineering. I actually went to school for communication and marketing and then taught myself how to program. But it has been the weirdest transition in seeing this industry and seeing how everybody loves the engineers and then suddenly they get hated on. It's the wildest kind of bipolar relationship with your digital creators, man. It's weird.
Well, and it's like I tell my wife and I work together. We run our businesses together. And I always tell her, hey, when we have a problem like this that we have a solution to, document it, put it somewhere because it's bound to come up again in the future for us directly or one of our clients. And they're going to be like, have you ever dealt with this before? As a matter of fact, we have.
Right.
Here's how we solved it. It's just really important. I think I coach my clients all the time on documentation is king. Like you put out a product with a developer who wrote the whole entire section of code, but you didn't ask him to document it. And now someone else has to come in and they have to figure out how does it work? They could understand. What's the most surprising or maybe unexpected feedback you ever got from a client?
I always think about how big some clients want their logos on their website. It always cracks me up. You may just make your website on just one giant logo. Got it.
I have that happen to me all the time.
It's the funniest thing. I know you spent good money on that logo. You want it prominent. They can send you want a window decal to put in your car? Yeah, that one's always surprises me. We've had some really just bad feature requests over the years and things that you got to stomach it. You just got to snowball it and say, hey, I remember I'd have to talk to my team and they'd go, this is a horrible idea. Like, I think it was a cooking show and they wanted to have this weird animation. That's what it was. It was a weird animation of the host. And it was just, it served nothing. It was bad. It was ugly. And my team's going, hey, we can't do this. And like, you gave me your opinion, right? Yeah. Because this is going to be bad for business. They're going to lose money, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's not our position. We have to know our roles as developers. We are not here to give business advice. So it's always been a tricky one for us to tread that line of, yeah, man, this is a bad idea, but this is their dream. This is what they're paying for.
I've had clients tell me, but the logo is my branding, and then say it's your entire branding.
Well, your branding is going to come across as loud and aggressive and probably off.
Yeah. And I also love it. Like when people will choose WordPress as their platform to build on and pick a theme and they'll love the theme. Oh, it's so great. And then you put their logo in the place of the other logo and they're like, no, it's not big enough. It needs to be bigger. How much bigger do you really want it? Like you said, do you want to take up the entire page when they first hit your site? Is that what you're looking for? That's going to look really stupid.
I can do it for you. It's not a problem. It's just,
that's my other favorite thing is, can you, and then they ask a question that they pretty much know you can do. They've seen it elsewhere. Those are my favorites. But I'm a big proponent of, as a developer, when a client first asks for something, don't just say no. Look into it and see if it's possible. Can you give them some iteration of what they're looking for without making it look insane? I think that's sometimes makes them happy, just because then they realize, okay, you paid attention to what I asked for. You're listening to me and you might not be giving me exactly what I wanted. Hey, this is close enough. And you actually gave me good reasons not to give me exactly what I wanted. I think that's huge for just any kind of development.
Yeah, we did have, when it came to the early days of creative that we were doing, we had a phrase that was, don't give them what they want, give them what they didn't know they could have. I always really liked that one. And that was that listening to the problem that they have. Like maybe the logo needs to be bigger. Okay, you're having issues with brand recognition. You feel like your brand is not being seen out there. Let's work on another strategy that gets you more brand recognition. So you can give them workarounds to that. Sometimes they just want a bigger logo and you just got to back off. But so you give them what they can do a lot of times. And they didn't know that you could do these certain things, right? Because they're not in this industry. And that's where the empathy comes in. And that's where the kind of two sides of the hat that I can wear goes, where, okay, I can see where this is a business owner has this problem. And as a technical solution mind, we can do this. Now, budget always comes in, timeline always comes in. And I can tell you, hey, it's going to be this, it's going to take this long, and probably cost you this much. It's this weird negotiation you're constantly having with clients, especially at the stages that we deal with, which is like the small business and the startups. You're always in this negotiation. Recently, we had a big contract come into us and I'm sitting here negotiating. They go, Justin, it's okay. We're not a startup. We have money. Like, oh, okay. I've been so conditioned to think about budget and timelines, and they're like, you have time and money on this one. It's okay. And I'm like, I don't even know what to do with myself. So it's exciting. We're going to be doing a big project, but that was a relief because you're so conditioned to think that's how they're going to respond.
So why don't you let listeners know where they can connect with you if they have questions or just want to reach out?
Yeah, fyclabs.com. That's where you'll see most of our portfolio work and our services that we do. You can email me at justin@fyclabs.com. LinkedIn's a great place for you to go find me on LinkedIn, connect with me there, follow what I'm up to. We post a lot about that fractal group that I told you about, where we have a few startups that we've started on our own, some angel investing that we've done, and we have actually 3 services businesses that you can check out. We have a media services, we have a recruiting service. Check it out. It's a great place to connect, and happy to have some new friends.
Awesome. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today. I really appreciate having you here and that you took your time to speak to my listeners.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks everybody for being here. Hope to see you back here next week for another fantastic episode.